Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Jaded Blossom has a fun mini beach release that's now available. And if you are interested, I do have links provided in the description box below. This may be a mini release, but it is packed full of fun products. So let me show you everything that's included in the release. The first item is a mermaid stencil. This is currently not available for individual purchase. This is the freebie you'll receive if you purchase at least $50 worth of product, and one item has to be from the new release. The freebie is only available for a limited time. There are two more stencils in the release. One is called Shell and the other is Ocean Waves. These are single stencils and you can use them to create fun ocean beach theme backgrounds. Next, we have the stamp and coordinating outline dies. This is called Ahoy Gnomie. Lots of really fun sentiments that work well with the stencil and dies in the mini release. It includes Hello Summer, Ahoy Gnomie, Seize the Day, Life is a Beach, Surf's Up Gnomie, and several other fun sentiments. Jaded Blossom always has great sentiment sets. The next item is a die set called Large Palm Tree. There's the outline piece, individual leaves, the coconuts, and also the trunk of the tree. The palm tree is a nice large size. I'm placing it on an A2 size card base for comparison. So you still have plenty of space to add a gnome and your palm tree. The final item is another gnome add-on set. This is Beach, and as you can see, it is a very large set. There are so many pieces, I couldn't fit everything on my magnetic sheet. There are so many fun images on this set. There's a new sailor hat, sandcastle, beach ball, an anchor, surfboard, ice cream cone with the ice cream dripping. There's an adorable crab, a fish, and even a flamingo inner tube. For my cards today, I'll be using several different paper collections. Most of them are by Sunny Studio. I have their Summer Splash collection, which is really cute. And then I'll also be using some of their tone-on-tone collections. And on a couple of cards, I'll also be using pattern paper from Honeybee Stamps Beach Vibes paper pad, which unfortunately has retired. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. The pattern paper I'm using for the background is absolutely adorable. It has lots of pink flamingos. Toward the bottom of the card, I'm adding a tone-on-tone wave pattern paper strip. It's about 1 3/4 of an inch tall. Between the two pattern papers, I'll put a Love from Lizzie peel off, this beautiful teal holographic color. I'll wrap the ends around the back, then I'll layer this piece on some blue cardstock. Put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. Next, I'll add a large oval stitch die cut, and I cut this out from some white cardstock. I'll put glue on the back and adhere the oval onto the card. Now I'll assemble the adorable flamingo inner tube. I cut out the main portion of the flamingo from some pink tone-on-tone polka dot paper from Sunny Studio. For the background piece, I cut it out of some white cardstock. I'll first add the body, then the two different pieces for the beak. I cut out the wing from a darker pink cardstock color. Since I used white cardstock for the background piece, currently the eye is white. You could put a piece of black cardstock behind the eye area, or you could even take a black marker. I'm using a Love from Lizzie peel off for the eye. This is the bubble style, and unfortunately it has retired. Now it's time to add my gnome. I've already assembled most of the little girl gnome. I put glue on the back side of the flamingo and I'll attach the gnome behind. The assembly is slightly different since the gnome's feet will go in front of the flamingo inner tube. I'll add the foot on the right and then one on the left. And her hands will sit right on the edge of the flamingo, like she's holding onto it. I made sure her thumbs were both on the inside since that's how it would be if you were holding an item like that. Now I'll flip over my gnome and put foam dimension on the back. Make sure to get good coverage so there isn't one area that sags. For the flamingo's neck, I will need to trim down some of that foam dimension. Then I'll remove the release paper and add my gnome on top of the oval, placing her all the way toward the bottom of the oval so it looks like she's still sitting in the water at the bottom of the card. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out. This is Hello Summer. I cut out a second piece using the outline die from some blue iridescent cardstock, adhered the two pieces together, creating this sparkly drop shadow underneath the sentiment. And I did pop it up using some foam dimension. I'll also add a sun, and this is from the Gnome add-on weather set. I'll pop that up with foam dimension as well. Since it's very bright and sunny out, my little gnome girl will be wearing some sunglasses. I'm using the glasses die set, and I chose the heart glasses. They are so cute. I cut out the frame from some dark pink cardstock, the same pink color as the flamingo's wing. And for the lens of the sunglasses, I'm using some pink iridescent cardstock. I'll first glue down the frames right above her nose, then I'll add the heart lenses. I think the gnomes look so cute wearing a pair of glasses, especially because you can't see their eyes. Using a clear glitter brush, I'll add a little bit of sparkle to the inside of the sun. Then for embellishments, I'm using some shape sprinkles from Doodlebug. I'll add 3 pink hearts underneath the sentiment and also a flower on the gnome's hat. And using a white gel pen, I've already added some highlights to the gnome and also the flamingo. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 2, the pattern paper is from Sunny Studios' Heroic Halftones collection. I selected the blue color and cut this panel down to 5 1/4 inches by 4 inches, and I'll layer it on some darker blue cardstock. Put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. At the bottom of this panel, I'm adding some wave borders, and I cut these out using the same blue cardstock and Jaded Blossoms border die set. I'll put the taller wave piece down first, and the shorter piece I'll pop up using some foam dimension. I'll remove the release paper and add the shorter wave border at the bottom of the card. I've assembled part of a boy gnome. He'll be wearing the new sailor hat. I cut out the background and the brim piece from some white cardstock, and for the narrow stripe I used some red cardstock. The sailor hat is much shorter than the traditional gnome hat, so I will need to trim off part of that background hat piece. After adhering the hat, I'll glue down the mustache and the nose, and I did pop up the nose with some foam dimension. I'll put glue on the back of the gnome and adhere him between the 2 waves, so the lower part of his feet and beard are tucked in behind that short wave. Now I'll start assembling the fish. I cut out the main body from some bright yellow cardstock and used an orangish yellow cardstock for the fins and tail. I will put some foam dimension behind the fish just on the upper portion. Then I'll tuck the fish in behind the short wave. So it looks like the fish is having a little conversation with the gnome. The gnome will be holding a light blue starfish or sea star. I will need to trim the very bottom portion of the starfish off in order to fit it underneath the waves. I probably should have attached the hands and the starfish before adding my gnome behind the waves. Next, I'll put glue on the back of the hands and attach them onto the starfish. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out. Out of all the fish in the sea, you're the Gnomie one for me. I'll put glue on the back and adhere the sentiment in the upper left-hand corner. For embellishments, I'm using more of the heart shape sprinkles by Doodlebug. Selected the red and white color. I'll put 3 in the upper left-hand corner and 2 on the right side of the sentiment. This year, I'm really trying to use up some of the partial Doodlebug shape sprinkle sets that I have. Then for a final finishing touch, I'm using a white gel pen and adding highlights to the gnome, the starfish, and the sweet little yellow fish. On the starfish, I put lots and lots of little white polka dots. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how this card turned out. Not sure how the gnome is just floating out there in the waves, but I thought it looked really cute. Now moving on to card design number 3. I'm using some pattern paper by Sunny Studio for the background, all the different waves as the ocean gets deeper and deeper. For the sandy ocean bottom, I'm using some pattern paper from Honeybee Stamps Beach Vibes collection, and I cut it out using Jaded Blossoms Border Set number 2. I'll add some plant life to the bottom of the ocean floor. I used Jaded Blossoms flower die set for the 3 leafy branches. One I'll cut off the bottom and tuck it behind the little sandy hillside. The other 2 I'll glue in front. I'm putting 2 on the left side and 1 on the right, making sure to leave enough area above that I'll still be able to add one of the gnomes. I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. Now I'll start assembling another gnome. I have most of the boy gnome assembled already. This gnome will be a little scuba diver, and I know this snorkel gear doesn't really go all the way under the water. I use orange and blue cardstock for his fins. I have a light orange pattern paper for his hat, and the snorkel mask matches his fins. I did use some iridescent vellum for the main portion of the mask. When I glue all those pieces together, I'm being very careful not to get any glue on the vellum portion since I don't want it to show. I'll first put glue on the back of the blue portion of the mask and adhere it onto the vellum piece. Then I'll add glue on the back and adhere that piece onto the orange background. Then I'll carefully put glue on the back of the mask and adhere it onto my gnome, covering up most of his nose. Once the scuba mask is adhered, I'll flip over the gnome and remove the release paper on all the little foam pieces. And I did put slightly thicker foam dimension on the end of the flippers. Then I'll adhere my gnome at an angle. Makes it look like he's floating underwater. At the bottom of the ocean, I'll also be adding one of the crab images. This crab is absolutely adorable. There are 2 pieces for the crab, and I'm using the same red cardstock for each of them. I'll layer them together. It's hard to see on the video, but the die does leave a little pierced area for the eyes, but I want the eyes to stand out a little bit more, so I'm using some Love from Lizzie peel-offs. The small white circle is from the mini circle set, and the small black is from the bubble set, which is retired. The crab is already really cute, but I think by adding the extra to the eyes, now he's absolutely adorable. I will pop him up using some foam dimension. I'll make sure to put some small pieces underneath his claws. I'll remove the release paper and add the crab in the lower right-hand corner. The gnome will be holding a yellow polka dot starfish, and I've already attached his hands and put foam dimension on the back. I'll remove the release paper and add it in front of the gnome. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out. Gnomie, you're a star. And I did pop up the sentiment with some foam dimension. For embellishments, I'll add more of the shape sprinkles. Several of the sets I'm using are part of Doodlebug Designs Seaside Summer Collection. I'll put 2 fish underneath the sentiment, also add 2 shells on the ocean floor, and 3 little bubbles coming out of the tube of the scuba mask. For a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add some highlights to the gnome, the starfish, and also the crab. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how this card turned out with the bright, vivid colors. The new stamp and die sets from Jaded Blossom work perfectly with Sunny Studios' Summer Splash collection. For card design number 4, the main card design is very similar to card design number 3. At the bottom of the card, I'm using more of the Honeybee Stamps sand pattern paper. This time I'm adding a little extra ink. I'm using Catherine Pooler's Spiced Ink Color. I'll also add a little extra ink to the sandcastle pieces. The sandcastle image has the background piece, there's the front piece, the door, and also 5 windows. And there are 2 different sizes of windows. I'll start by adding the front piece of the castle. Just glue that right on top. Then I'll add the door, the 3 larger windows, and then finally the 2 small windows in the towers. This sandcastle is very cute, and it's small enough that you could have a gnome holding it, although I'll be placing it on the sandy beach. For the background of my card, I'm using more pattern paper from Sunny Studio. It's all clouds in different shades of blue. At the bottom of the panel, I'll be adding the sandy piece and also a strip of the tone-on-tone wave paper. I'll hold the sand piece so I can get the placement of the water down first. Then I'll attach the stitched sand piece. I'll put adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base. Now I'll start adding all the different items to my beach scene. The sandcastle will go in the lower right hand corner, and I will put foam dimension behind just the towers. I'll remove the release paper, put glue on the bottom, and adhere it in place. This card will be featuring the new large palm tree die set. I cut out the background from some dark green cardstock. I used a dark brown cardstock for the trunk, and the same dark green cardstock for all of the palm leaves. I'll start by adhering the tree trunk, then I'll add each of the single palm leaves. And it's nice that they have the leaves individually, that way you could use them for something else. There are some tiny areas on the background piece that aren't completely covered up with the leaves, and that's why I decided to use the same green cardstock for that background piece. I have one final leaf to attach. Now I'll add 3 coconuts, and I used a dark brown cardstock color for them. I also have foam dimension on the back. I'll remove the release paper and adhere the 3 coconuts all together at the top of the tree. Now I'll flip over my palm tree and add foam dimension just behind the leaves. I'll add glue on the back side of the trunk and adhere the palm tree on the left side of the card. The palm tree image is perfect for creating some fun beach theme cards. Another cute image that's included on the Beach Gnome add-on set is the beach ball. I used white cardstock for the background piece. For the different stripes on the beach ball, I selected blue and yellow tone-on-tone polka dot pattern paper and also some white cardstock. All of the different die cut pieces have the fun faux stitch detail. I'll put glue on the back and slowly add piece by piece to create the fun little beach ball. I'm down to the final 3 little pieces. It does help to have a pair of reverse tweezers when gluing down tiny little pieces. Once my beach ball is all assembled, I'll flip it over and put foam dimension on the back. I was looking for some white foam dimension, but couldn't find it on my desk. I did end up finding it later. So I'm using black foam dimension. It won't be visible from the front of the card, so it really doesn't matter if I use white or black foam dimension. My card will also feature 2 of the adorable crabs, and I've already assembled them. I have foam dimension on the back. I'll remove the release paper and put both of the crabs in the lower left-hand corner. Now I'll add the beach ball so that the crab on the right is holding it in its claws. They're playing a little game of catch. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out, Seize the Day, and I'll adhere it in the upper right-hand corner. To finish off the card, I'll use a white gel pen and add highlights to the tree, the coconuts, the crabs, the beach ball, and the sandcastle. I have a scrap piece of cardstock on the side just to scribble off the ink to make sure it flows smoothly. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The crab images are definitely one of my favorites from the new beach add-on set. I was tempted to use the crabs again for my final card, but decided to use some of the other fun images. For card design number 5, I'll be using the new shell stencil. It's a beautiful design. I have a piece of craft cardstock in my mini stencil mat, and I am holding it in place with some of Scrapbook.com's mint tacky tape. I've selected 2 different Catherine Pooler inks. The first one I used is Do-si-do, and the second color is Flame. I started with Do-si-do, putting it in the upper right-hand corner. Then I'll add the Flame color in the lower left-hand corner. After getting a nice dark color of Flame in the lower left-hand corner, I'll then move toward the center, adding more ink, going for a very ombre looking background. Then I'll trim down this panel to 5 3/8 of an inch by 4 1/8 of an inch. Layer it on some dark blue cardstock. I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. I'll add a strip of tone-on-tone wave pattern paper from Sunny Studio. There's a really fun and vibrant fish design on the back side. I'll attach the wave pattern paper onto my card. Not quite in the center, I do have that strip just a little lower on the card. Along the edge of the pattern paper, I'll add some Love from Lizzie peel-offs. This is the pinstripe style in the white color. I'll flip over my card, use my scissors to trim off the extra. This card will be featuring another gnome. I have a little girl with the sailor hat, and she has the different legs where she's sitting and doing the splits. That way I can add the new sandals, which are adorable. I used some light blue cardstock for the background piece of the sandal and brown cardstock for the sole of the sandal. I'll glue those 2 pieces together. Then I'll flip it over, put glue on the back, and add the sandals on top of her feet. She looks so sweet in her sandals and sailor hat. The leg option with them doing the splits is part of Jaded Blossom's leg add-on set. And you could snip the legs in half to have the gnome standing up. Now I'll flip over my gnome, put foam dimension on the back, and I will be adding the gnome and anchor onto a vellum oval die cut. The stencil background is so pretty, I didn't want to cover up a lot of that design. So I'll use vellum for the oval. That way the images stand out from the background, but you can still see the design through the vellum. For the anchor, I cut it out from some silver satin mirror cardstock and blue cardstock for the little ring at the top of the anchor. I'll adhere all of the pieces together using some glue. Now I'll attach the anchor and the gnome onto the vellum oval. The anchor will go down first. I'll put it on the left side, and the gnome will sit in front of the anchor. Once I've adhered the 2 images onto the oval, I'll flip it over, put glue on the back side, just where the die cut pieces are. That way the glue won't show through on the vellum. Then I'll adhere the oval to the center of my card. The girl gnome will be holding a fish, and I've already assembled it. I used some glitter cardstock for the fins and also the tail. I'll adhere her hands around the fish, one above and one below the body. Then I'll flip it over, put foam dimension on the back, remove the release paper, and attach the fish in front of the little girl gnome. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out, Ahoy, Gnomie. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in the upper left-hand corner. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add highlights to the gnome and also the fish. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how this one turned out. The colors look so pretty together. I really enjoyed this release and couldn't choose a favorite card this time. Now here's another look at the 10 cards I made using Jaded Blossom's brand new mini beach release. This release is absolutely adorable. It may be a mini release, but there are lots of fun new items. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Jaded Blossom's products are always so much fun, and bonus, their stamps, dies, and stencils are all made here in the US. I love supporting small businesses, especially when they're local, and Jaded Blossom is close enough to being local to me since they're right next door in Idaho. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.